The lunchtime news, now BBC One with Kasia Madera.
Hello, good afternoon. Pope Francis has been seen in public for the first time since he was admitted to hospital 5 weeks ago with a severe respiratory infection. He waved from a window at the hospital in Rome, where he's been treated before leaving for the Vatican. As Bethany Bell reports, doctors treating the 88-year-old say that he will need at least 2 months of rest to recover.
Pope Francis has appeared in public after more than 5 weeks in hospital. He's been through the most serious health crisis of his papacy, a severe respiratory infection which resulted in pneumonia in both lungs. He offered a blessing to well-wishers gathered outside. His doctors say his life was in danger twice, but he was always alert and never had to be intubated. Prayers have been said at the Vatican and around the world for his recovery. Earlier this month, a recording of his voice was played in St. Peter's Square. He sounded weak, struggling for breath. Last week, the Vatican released this photo of the Pope in the chapel in his apartment at the hospital. When he goes home, his doctors say he'll need to spend at least 2 months recovering and resting. They say he never stopped working during his stay in hospital, but that he'll need to wait before he starts meeting groups of people. The Vatican says it's not making any predictions about whether he'll be able to take part in the Easter celebrations next month.
There was a surge of emotion from the crowd when the Pope appeared on the balcony, and Francis himself was smiling. He clearly very much enjoyed seeing the crowd welcoming him, but also he looked tired, he looked weak. He waved at the crowd, he offered a blessing, but he didn't say very much, and he didn't stay there very long, and it's clear that he's going to need at least 2 months of recovery, as his doctors say. They've told him to avoid big events, but this Pope, we know, is a Pope that likes to do things, who likes to work, and it will be now a difficult battle between him and his advisors as to how much work he takes on now.
Bethany Bell from Rome, thank you very much. The Turkish president's main political opponent has been charged with corruption and kept in jail on the day his party's due to nominate him as its candidate for the next election. Ekrem İmamoğlu's arrest has sparked days of protest against President Erdogan's government. This morning, his supporters were urged to come out and peacefully demonstrate their solidarity. As Emily Wither reports from Istanbul.
Turks were called on by the opposition today to vote in a symbolic show of support for the jailed mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. They turned out by the hundreds of thousands. In this one small neighbourhood in Istanbul, the line stretched block by block down the street. An unprecedented scene that's being echoed in towns and cities across Turkey.
The will of the voters have been actually snapped by the government.
We are almost losing the democracy. This is very important for us, for children, for future.
This alongside the CHP's long-planned ballot to elect him as their presidential candidate for the next elections, regardless of whether he's in jail.
This hastily erected polling station is outside the local pastry shop. There are people here of all ages. The cars going past are honking their horns in a show of support. And there's only one name on this symbolic ballot: Ekrem İmamoğlu.
The police heavily guarded the courthouse where, after overnight hearings, İmamoğlu was jailed on corruption charges. He'll also have to defend himself in court on terror charges. Inside the courthouse, his wife said the decision was unjust and illegal. İmamoğlu called on his supporters not to lose hope. The authorities are trying to shut down mass demonstrations with force and fear, arresting hundreds overnight. President Erdogan said justice and politics would not be decided by street terrorism. Many Turks no longer trust either. For those protesting, this goes beyond politics. They say it's a fight for the future of a democratic Turkey and a last chance to save their country from sinking deeper into authoritarian rule. Emily Wither, BBC News.
An Israeli airstrike in southern Gaza has killed a senior Hamas political leader. Further Israeli strikes on Rafah and Khan Yunis have killed at least 40 people in the past 24 hours. That's according to Hamas officials. So let's speak to our correspondent in Jerusalem, Emir Nader. Emir, just bring us up to date with the latest.
Well, that's right. We've had the killing of this senior Hamas leader this morning in an Israeli airstrike announced by Hamas. It hasn't yet been confirmed, or the Israeli side hasn't yet commented on it, but it will be a blow to Hamas. But it comes as Israeli ground forces are making a push into an area called Rafah, sending what appears to be thousands of Gazans fleeing from the area, grabbing what they can, packing up their bags, and we're seeing images of families just marching, walking in a column out of the area, trying to seek safety elsewhere. With humanitarian organisations, they're saying that their attempts to reach people who've been wounded and caught up in this push by the Israeli military on the ground, their attempts are being blocked in terms of reaching there. And it comes as we've had these latest statistics of over 50,000 people who have been recorded by local health officials in Gaza as having been killed since the war started in October 2023.
Emir Nader in Jerusalem, thank you. Thousands of civil servants risk losing their jobs after the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, confirmed that she intends to slim down backroom administrative roles in the government. The civil service is being asked to find cuts of up to 15% of its budget by 2030, or around £2 billion a year. The Chancellor insists frontline services in areas like the NHS and education will not be impacted. Here's our political correspondent, Billy Kember.
Teachers, nurses, police officers. Rachel Reeves said she wants to give more money to those on the front line of public service, but civil servants in administrative functions are going to see job cuts. Speaking on Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg, the Chancellor confirmed that government departments must make savings worth more than £2 billion a year, with further cuts likely to follow.
We can't just carry on like we have been, spending on the same things that the previous government spent on. People want to know we're getting value for money when people are paying more in tax, that they're getting more in return. And that's why in the budget last year, we put that additional money into those free breakfast clubs, into reducing NHS waiting lists, and indeed increasing the pay of our armed forces, our police, our nurses and our teachers.
Departments will be told to reduce their running costs by 10% a year by 2029, with a target of 15% by 2030. Labour wants the cuts to focus on those in back office functions. They say this will allow it to protect frontline services. But trade unions say that's not possible and job losses will be felt by the public. The cuts come as Reeves is expected to have to find more in savings to meet her self-imposed fiscal rules. Some in the Labour Party have argued those rules should be loosened, but Reeves said they play a crucial role.
In the changing and uncertain world we're in, we have economic stability. Markets can be confident. The fiscal rules are non-negotiable. Of course, we've got more to do. We've only been in government for a few months. I'm determined to bring back the growth. That is the prize that is on offer. Great public services, world-class public services, without asking working people to pay more.
The Conservative Party criticised how Labour are handling the economy and said they were responsible for the lack of growth.
We've got markets out there that are lending us a huge amount of money. We have an interest on our national debt, which is now about 100 billion a year, which is twice what we spend on defence. And part of that is because our borrowing costs have risen, part of which is due to the fact that the markets themselves are twitchy about the way the UK economy has been run over the last 9 months.
On Wednesday, the Chancellor will deliver her spring statement. The pressure is on for the Labour government to show it can both cut spending and deliver economic growth. Billy Kember, BBC News.
Colleagues from the world of radio have been paying tribute to the former DJ and presenter Andy Peebles, who's died at the age of 76. Andy Peebles was a staple on BBC Radio 1 throughout the 80s and was known for being the last person to interview John Lennon on the radio before he was killed. Tony Blackburn, who worked alongside him at Radio 1, described him as a lovely man and a great broadcaster. The former Radio 1 DJ Andy Peebles, who's died at the age of 76. Well, that's all from me. I'll be on the BBC News channel from 2 o'clock. The next news here on BBC One is at 10 to 5. From me and the team, bye-bye.